Good morning. My name is Janet Travers, and I'm a member of the San Diego Writers and Editors Guild. We are promoting our new anthology called Good Luck with That. I'm trying to emphasize it differently each time. We have one of our authors here, and his name is Al Converse.
Hi there.
Hi, Al. How are you?
Hi, Janet.
Looks beautiful wherever you are.
Yeah, I have a nice picture of Pikes Peak behind me in Colorado Springs.
Oh,
It's where I live right now. I'm a San Diego native, well, almost native, but I moved here to independent living with my wife because of my age and our various ailments, and our granddaughters live in the area.
Yeah. How long were you in San Diego?
Well, a couple occasions I was there as a Navy brat. I went to Coronado High School. I went to Sacred Heart for 8th grade and Coronado High School for freshman, sophomore, junior year. And then the senior year, Dad was transferred. He's a Navy guy to Fall River, Massachusetts. And I went to my senior year in Fall River at Durfee High School. Then I was in the Navy because I graduated college, Boston University in 65. And being unmarried and not going to graduate school, I decided to go to OCS rather than be drafted. I went in the Navy and was assigned a ship out of San Diego. So I was there well, we weren't deployed to Vietnam. I met my wife in San Diego.
Nice.
Of course, with the whole story, when I got out, what were we going to do? So we got married and moved back east. But after about 8 years, we went back to San Diego. And after being unemployed and stuff, eventually got hired by the Small Business Administration in San Diego. And I retired there as the chief of the finance division. I don't know if they call it that anymore. Everything's so automated, but I did all the loans, San Diego County, Imperial County.
All right. Well, are you still a Padres fan is really the most important thing.
Padres got to start winning more to get me to be a fan.
Oh, come on. You can still like them.
I remember them when I was in Coronado High School. They were the minor league team in the Pacific Coast League. I remember that. Yeah, that's about all I can say for the Padres, right?
Okay.
I don't follow the Colorado Rockies either.
So I was going to say, we still love them, though.
Oh, yes, we love the San Diego Padres.
Well,
Steve Garvey, I remember too.
can you tell me what vigilante fiction is?
Well, that's where the protagonist goes out and does extra legal things that you wish the law would do, but they don't. My character tries to fix certain things the law can't fix.
You've published 9 works on Amazon.
Yeah, I have to count now. 7 or 8 vigilante ones. The first one was sort of coming of age, as it's set in Coronado High School. It's called, I'll use a word we used then all the time in Coronado, bitchin'. So that was the title of my book, because it was a bitchin' book and a bitchin' time. It has to do with this young man who actually kills another student who's a druggie who tried to kill him. But in the meantime, he has different affairs with 5 senior girls. He's a sophomore, so it's the FBI lets him off the hook, and he looks forward to future adventures.
With more cougar women, I take it.
More cougar women, yeah. He stays that character through 7 or 8 books, and the one I'm writing right now, the way I set it up is he never marries because it would ruin the stuff. Each book you have to have the sex stuff in it, and then violence and stuff. So he's always got to have a different woman or some connection there to generate some conflict and so on. So that's how I kind of use him. He generally makes money for what he does. And right now, he's a rich guy. He runs a lawn mowing franchise that he set up originally as a cover for Vigilante stuff, and he's doing pretty well. The current book is around 76 or so, around the time they passed Proposition 13, and he's working on a case in the independent living in Temecula that's also situated on a winery estate. Try and get the stuff I learned here at independent living, I try to put that in there. And if I'm at 10,000 words, I need 50 or so to finish it. And I have an idea how it ends, but it's been slow going. But this type of thing, an interview, being a member of the San Diego Writers Editors, that helps inspire me and get me off my, rear end to write.
Oh, good.
Absolutely. I wrote about 1,000 words yesterday, so that's pretty good.
All right. What is the name of the short story you have published in this anthology?
It's based on something that happened to me when I was 12, and I was a Navy brat. So my dad was a officer in charge of the Navy Reserve Training Center in Hamilton, Ohio at the time when I was 12. That was before we moved to San Diego. I joined Soapbox Derby. There were about 60 kids in it. That's based on my recollection of that. And I actually came in sixth place and won a fishing reel. And the way I came in sixth place was I ate a bunch of hot dogs right before the heat.
Oh, so what's the name of this story?
Oh, I'm sorry, hot dogs and fishing reels.
Hot dogs. I want to say it slowly. Hot dogs and fishing reels.
Yeah, yeah. I tried to make it different, rather than saying soapbox derby or something.
So you don't have to tell us the whole story.
I won't tell you the whole story.
Oh, because we have to read it ourselves.
Yeah, right.
People have to get the anthology to read.
But you take something you remember and you embellish it. And that's that short story.
What was your inspiration to write the story?
The hot dogs and fishing reels. I have to bring this to the present a little. Our vice president came from Middleton, Ohio. Did you know that? It's right next to Hamilton. Both those towns in the 50s, when I was in Hamilton, were little towns. Now they're all part of Cincinnati. It's kind of like San Diego, Oceanside. The whole thing is one big metropolis. But at the time, Hamilton was a little town. That's what I based the story on.
Your inspiration was to just recollect a night.
I like the times in America the way it was then.
So the good luck or is it? How did that fit into the theme?
I'm sorry.
Good luck or is it?
Oh, well, my protagonist, me, he eats a bunch of hot dogs just before his first heat because the whole thing is these are gravity racers and the heavier the better, but they had a maximum weight. So his scheme, his little 12-year-old scheme was go to the hot dog stand and he eats a bunch of hot dogs, but he starts getting sick.
Sorry.
I can't tell you the whole story. Okay. That's what happens. That's his good luck thing is his hot dogs, but it's bad luck because he gets sick, and that affects his outcome.
Why do you enjoy being a member of SDWEG? I see that it got you off your butt to write 1,000 words yesterday, but other than that,
I joined it a long time ago.
When did you join it?
Somewhere around 2012. One of the reasons I joined it is I wanted a better shot at getting my short story in the anthology, the first one you guys did. At the time, I was writing bitchin'. I was in a little group at a place up near Carlsbad. I drive up on Wednesday nights, and I thought, geez, I used to send stuff off to these contests. You pay $15, and if you win, they give you $2,500 and put you in the book. And anyway, they send you a copy of the book. And I never won one, but I got honorable mention my first short story. So that was one thing that encouraged me. And then the little group I was in, and when I found out about your anthology, that really got me going. You actually published my first anything.
So you got published in the 2012 San Diego
Yes.
Writers Editor
Yeah.
Guild anthology.
Yeah.
And were you published in subsequent anthologies?
I've been in all of them, I believe.
All of them?
I've always tried to put something in, and as it gets harder because there's a lot more competition now. And they're all different. The first one I think was based on was a little kid.
Are you in a writing group currently? Have you always been in one?
No. I tried one here, but now we have Grammarly and a thing called autocritic. You have to be careful with Grammarly because it wants to correct all your dialogue.
So we'll also do a little reminder that you can join a critique group through the Guild and go on Zoom.
I understand. I've thought about that. I might do that, but I like these monthly meetings. They inspire me.
Oh, good. You go to the monthly meetings and you listen to the lectures.
Yeah, and since I figured out the Zoom a couple of months ago, I'm doing it more.
Well, do you remember the first story you ever wrote?
Yeah, it was based on a little kid in Springfield, Massachusetts. And it reminisced about my mom. When we lived there was a dirt road, and we were trying to pave the road with our spoons. And cars would come by. It was kind of based on that. And eating fudgicles in the afternoon in the summertime.
Well, maybe the fudgicles are what motivated you to become an author.
No, even though I talk, I'm pretty good right now. I'm kind of more introspective person in groups and things. I'd be the one off daydreaming, and they'd say, "Hey, Al, what do you?" Even as a kid, I like to read those short stories. A short story every week. And I also said, "Gee, that'd be cool," but I didn't really In all my jobs, I had like a lot of writing involved in being chief of the loan division there in San Diego, reports and things. And I always kind of wanted to write. So when I retired, that's when I got more interested.
And when you started, how did you decide which form or genre was right for you?
You ever hear November is a novel writing month? That's what I got into with Bitchin', my first book. And I did it all in a month. And I wrote 50,000 words. It was horribly edited. And my wife has helped me in the past editing. We went through that about 100 times, my first book. And it was before Grammarly, and I didn't have a group or anything. I did join a group after I'd written it. In that group, one lady had gone and self-published on Amazon. I thought that was always the vanity publishing where you pay 10,000 and they send you 10,000 books in your garage and you never sell them. But I learned from her and I published Bitchin' myself. And it was in early days on Kindle. I sold a few. When you offer them free, I downloaded one time 12,000 copies of Bitchin'. So that
So,
was my first book. And it started off my character who I thought would be a kid would have these senior girlfriends and be a stud and solve a case. And that's kind of how it goes.
so your books, you self-publish your books?
Yeah, because there's a million people who want to write a book. But publishers, especially these days, they're going to publish a book from Donald Trump or what's her name? Because they're well known. There's a zillion people trying to write crime books. You can go on Amazon and go through, and there's a million of them. I don't think that anybody that writes a novel has much of a chance except be taken advantage of. You find a quote publisher, they'll say upfront money. They may publish it on Amazon stuff, but I'm kind of doubtful about your chances. So you write because you like it, and I self-publish it, but I do advertise on the little one. The first few years I made a little money, but after that, around 2017, things changed on Amazon. They seem to go mostly for the big time, and you have to pay maybe 50 cents to $1 a click if you advertise it on there. If you're only getting $2 or $3 on a ebook, 3 clicks and you're out of luck. So it's tough. You're not gonna make any money, right? Because you like it. Maybe future people with this AI business, it'll go into the cloud of everybody's intellect in the future and people will read it. Maybe
So is the most difficult part of your artistic process not making money, or?
I don't care about making money. Once in a while I'll put an ad on Facebook and I'll get some downloads. Hey, cool. But no, making money is pretty much out of the question. I want to get my own autobiography published, which I've been working on for years. And it's a good hobby, fun hobby.
How many unpublished and half-finished books do you have? So you're working on your autobiography.
Yeah, I've been working on that on and off. The only unpublished one right now I have, aside from my autobiography, is going to be called Murder at St. Jude's Independent Living. I'm going to put in stuff people don't necessarily know about independent living, which you may or may not know anything, or you may have a relative in it. It's not all cracked up to be.
Well, some people get murdered, right? I mean,
Yeah, well, yeah, in this case, somebody might get murdered. So that's the thing of writing too. You get to put your own opinions out there in writing, and some people might read it and be influenced by it.
what are common traps for aspiring writers?
Well, one of them is, I always get stuck at 10,000 words. That's where I am now. You just get tired of saying, hell with it. That's one big trap. The other trap is thinking you're going to make any money because you'd be terribly disappointed if you're betting everything on your book. Never do that. Even like if you're a specialist, you think you got a book that solves cancer or something, selling it is unlikely, probably.
So
But you can self-publish it. Someone might publish it for you.
all right.
So that's a big trap. You need to look at writing a little differently than hopefully making money on it.
Oh, yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think I
Try
agree.
not to, yeah.
What genre do you write in most often? We did discuss this vigilante fiction and historical fiction.
The two books that got some interest are historical fiction. One's based on my experience in Vietnam, and a pretty good picture of the Navy on a ship in the South China Sea in 1967. And I was on the flagship of the Special Landing Force, and we landed Marines. That was pretty well accepted by my old shipmates and so on. The other nonfiction one was Vermonter. It turns out my great-great-grandfather was a private in the Civil War. He was born in Bakersfield, Vermont. And he was a 9-month enlistee. They got the call to Gettysburg right toward the end of their enlistment. They made a countercharge against Pickett on the second or third day of the battle. And that ended it. They surrendered. And so that book's about that and my great-grandfather's experience.
Okay. So what is the most difficult thing about writing a novel or a nonfiction book? What's the most difficult part of the writing process?
It's really, for me, after you get the 5,000 words, I really have a great idea, start writing, and then I look at it and a lot of different thinking about it, and that's where I get delayed. I try and do 1 or 2 sentences a day, maybe, and chug along. And somewhere around 10, 9, 10, 15,000 words, I start taking off and do better. That's my own experience.
How often do you base your characters on real people?
Most of them have elements of real people that I've met, like Fred Winthrop, who's the protagonist, is basically me. But in Bitch and Mo is a fantasy, maybe what a high school kid sees as a fantasy. And the other characters, people are partially based on people I run into.
Al, thinking about everything you've written, who is your favorite character and why?
Oh, you're talking about my own characters that I wrote about?
Yeah, of course.
Oh, of course, the Fred Winthrop in Flagship was me.
Mhm.
My great-grandfather was the guy in Vermonter.
Great character.
I like Jimmy the violin in my various Mo Harris books, which are vigilante books. Jimmy the violin is a genius, but he's kind of goofy guy. He needs to have aid with him all the time. And he's skinny, looks like kind of spidery, but he can imitate anybody. He plays violin as a yoso. All right. The other thing, he's a genius. So he figures out stuff for Mo. He's kind of Mo's intelligence department of his vigilante group. And I kind of like him. Howard, who's his caretaker and chauffeur and manager, is kind of an interesting character.
So how long on average does it take you to write a book?
A year, 1 year,
1
almost
year.
all of them. This one right now has been on 2 years, but usually it's about a year.
All right. So
Those
rewrite,
vigilante,
that's
yeah,
including rewrites.
yeah. I first wrote Bitchin'. My wife and I looked at it. I had a reading group I came into later to look at it. And since then, actually, when I moved here a few years ago, I went through it with Grammarly and we published it. The great thing about Amazon is you can redo it and upload it pretty quick. And,
Wow. You can go back and change your book
uh,
with
yeah,
Amazon? So
yes, you can always do that. So it's an improved edited version, but it may have lost some of its character that way. And you got to be careful. Grammarly and stuff, they'll make you write well, but it doesn't put the character in it, the pizzazz in the book that you have from just writing
it's
yourself.
hard to discern how much to take from the suggestions from Grammarly.
Yeah. Let's see now, where was I? I was telling you about what? I was telling you about the books.
I just asked you how long it took. That's all.
Yeah.
What do you think about writer's block? Is writer's block real?
Oh, yeah. As I said, I usually run into it between like around the 10,000 word level, and even though I know where it's going, I just sit down there and I get bored to death and I can't write it. So I write one sentence, and the next day I write another one, and then
Well, you
at
just
some
keep going.
point something kicks me off, and I go from there.
So, how does your ethical outlook inform your writing?
My faith, ethical. Well, I believe in God. That's, I think, a good thing to have, especially if you're 82 years old. You want to know if something happens after. But and ethically, my characters, in my point of view, are ethical. Some people say they weren't because Mo and Bitchin sort of accidentally, but potentially kills this guy who's trying to kill him. But in the great scope of things, it seems right. And in Die Again, which is the second one I wrote, the female murderer gets dismembered by the father of the girl she killed. And that seems okay if you read the books. So, what is ethics and what is morality? It's kind of hard.
How do you decide on the title of your works? Is that a hard process?
Well, sometimes it comes real fast. The second one, Die Again, since we're on it, I wanted something catchy. There's a couple authors I like. Okay, I almost like John D. McDonald. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He wrote those kind of vigilante books. And I liked Bond, though not as much. He's kind of superficial. I mean, it's kind of unbelievable what he does. But anyway, he had this die thing in a lot of the titles. And I kind of wanted to catch that idea. I searched for a long time. And Die Again was not being used, but I used it in my book. And wasn't a couple months later, a lady who sells a lot of books, I can't remember her name, Tish something, wrote a book. She called it Die Again. As you know, you can't copyright a title. So that pissed me off a little because some of my advertising, I think, went to her books because mine came out first.
What are some of your other favorite writers? I think you just said two.
I liked Hemingway when I was younger. I
Ah,
always liked the shorter, briefer. And I learned actually ensigns get assigned all these things. One of the things we get to be PAO, what that is, public affairs, used to be public information officer. Part of my duties besides standing bridge watches was a whole bunch of news releases. And I learned how to write. They sent me a 2-day school how to write. But I learned action sentences and keep the sentences less than 25 words. Well, I'm a lot more sophisticated now, but when I first books had pretty short sentences, I try to look at them and take all the was's out and rewrite the sentences and make them action words.
yeah.
And those are two big things, I think, especially in action novels, that help. You don't want to have these long-winded sentences. You want to make your dialogue try and sound like people actually talk. So you read it and you read it. Is that really the way someone would say that?
Mhm.
Is it, here I drop my voice goes down. I say, and all sorts of weird things in conversations that you don't see if you just write dialogue perfectly according to grammar and all that. So when you think about dialogue, you got to think about how people talk.
How they talk in real life.
Yeah.
Yeah. Do you ever Google yourself?
Yeah, I have. I can Google AJ Converse, come up with my books. My books ended up on Barnes and Noble. I have no clue how Barnes and Noble got hold of them. And I never got a royalty from Barnes and Noble unless they pay Amazon and Amazon paid me or something. But some of them are on Barnes and Noble. Some of them were stolen. I could Google my name and they'd be out there. Someone was selling them somewhere.
Ugh.
So that's the problem these days. One way it's good, your voice gets out there. A lot of people read it. I'm sure people get tired of my book and donate Salvation Army. So when you write something, you put it out there. A lot of people are going to see it eventually. That's one good thing about writing.
They say all fiction is autobiographical. Do you think this is true in your writing? Or are you creating some characters, or is it all a part of you?
Well, the characters I create, like in the Mo Harris series, they're all from people, mostly from people I've known, little pieces of them. Mo Harris is probably the dark side of me, I suppose. You can't really write about stuff you don't know. It sounds superficial. Like I couldn't write about independent living, which I'm doing now, before I lived in a place, independent living, because I'd have no clue.
Right? You don't know the facts.
No.
And you better watch out you don't get murdered, though.
Yeah, there's no murders here.
Not yet.
It's distressing. People do die here. It's kind of you get to know people, they're gone. It's
Mm,
different.
yeah. So, what is your greatest failure, and what did you learn from that failure?
In my whole life,
Yeah.
smoking. It seems kind of trivial, but I started smoking when I was doing paper routes there in Coronado, delivered the LA Times my freshman year in high school. Meet this other kid. He delivered the Tribune or something. And he'd steal cigarettes from his father. Have a couple of small. They got me hooked and it was cool. You could buy them for 25 cents, gas station. Standing out front of dance, they give you something to do, smoke. It was cool.
Hmm.
And I got hooked. And in college, well, I was rode on the crew at Boston University all my 4 years there. But I still smoked a little and I still had the habit. I went in the Navy, go smoke like a smokestack. My God. Anyway, when I got out around age 30, I think it was in 1975, I quit smoking. Biggest health change in my life. I probably wouldn't be living today. Well, that's my thing.
So, are you a reader?
I like to read. I don't read so much anymore. I read magazine. The only one I read is The Economist. I do a lot of arguing on Facebook. And times have changed. Things change. you have so many opportunities, TV and on the computer. I don't sit down and read a book anymore so much. I used to like to read. I read all of what's his name's. And I just told you earlier what it was, but it brain freeze. Tell you in a minute.
Okay.
But he's the same guy who wrote Cape Fear, the movie. He wrote the book about it. What was his name?
Oh, that's a great. Oh, I don't know his name. I love that. Oh, I
Yeah.
love that.
James McDonald.
Yeah, James McDowell. I knew it.
Okay. Well, where and when would you like to set another novel?
Yeah, yeah. And it's not maybe not my last novel, but it's my next one in the series, Mo Harris.
So, how do you feel when you finished writing, let's say for the day, or perhaps you finished a short story or a chapter or whatever? Do you feel tired, exalted?
Oh yeah, if I finish a story, it gives me a pretty good feeling. Of course, it's a chore, uploading it and all that on Amazon. And I'll tell you here, Amazon makes it harder every day. It was real simple when it started. Now it's the trickier. They give you templates and all, and you have to mess around with it a lot. I do my own covers. You get a picture from Shutterstock or something, and you have to make it the right size. So you need a Photoshop program in your computer, and then you put the text on it and everything. I've learned how to do it, but I hate doing that stuff. I wouldn't mind if some publisher came along and said, "Hey, we'll do all that stuff for you."
But you're your own business, right? You're picking your own covers, you pick your own price.
Money you make, you wouldn't call it a business. You got to call it a hobby. You spend more on it than you earn from it.
It's kind of the old boat adage, the best day is the day you buy it.
Other than that, it's a hole in the water you put money into. Understand?
Thank you so much, Al
Yeah,
Converse.
enjoyed it.
Pleasure talking to you. And remember the Zoom for the critique groups.
Right on.
Bye.
Okay, bye. I'll click out here.
Okay.